Welcome to Tech and Tequila, the podcast where tech innovation meets life's boldest choices. I'm your host, Kat Lopez-Shelby, your go-to techie chica, trusted tech advisor, digital nomad, or I like to say local voyager, and tequila enthusiast. So whether you're here for the latest in tech trends, insights from industry leaders like the one we have on today, or just a good story with a splash of tequila, you are in the right place. Each week, we dive into game-changing strategies, inspiring journeys, and a little tech magic to help entrepreneurs, creators, and curious minds thrive in this fast-paced digital world. Oh, and did I mention we do it while serving up a side of your favorite tequila? Because life is too short not to celebrate every win. So grab your glass and power up and join the conversation, because this is Tech and Tequila, where the future meets the spirit of adventure. Salud. And of course, I am super excited to have Mr. Dave on here today. Thank you for joining me.
Appreciate it, Kat. Love it.
So Dave, why don't you give everybody just a little quick intro before we head into our tequila section?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my name is Dave Beagle. I am the channel director here at Ooma for our TSDs, which is our technology service distributors. Really focused on just evangelizing who Ooma is and what we can bring actually to the market, and how a lot of the advisors out there can monetize some of the services. And really, it's more than monetization. Really, it's providing solutions to the customer's pain points, really educating them on what's going on in the market that maybe they're unaware of. And hopefully we're going to do a little bit of that today.
Absolutely. And of course, before we get into the meat, you've got to have a drink to enjoy this discussion. So let me give you a little breakdown. Now, I am personally, which of course now you can't see, enjoying mi gente today. So we will excuse it. We had to blur the background due to life being a little bit more, like I would say, digital nomad and voyager adjacent. But I actually have the Blanco mi gente today, which is very clean and crisp. But why did I pick mi gente? And so I always pick a tequila to highlight because of either what they're doing or because they're doing something different. And sometimes even they're using technology to distill in a whole new way. But what I like about this, and kind of a little teaser towards our next episode as well, is that mi gente is not just making sure that their tequila is amazing, tastes wonderful, and is distilled in the most, like, leaving all the additives out, but they actually donate a portion of what they do to WEA, which is the Women's Earth Alliance. So first off, if you've never heard of mi gente, it hails from the highlands of Jalisco, Mexico. I feel like I say that almost every week when we talk about tequila, because there's only certain areas that it comes from, but that's where it is. And it stands out for its commitment to sustainability and authenticity. Like I said, they don't put any of the bad things in there. It's additive free. It is an artisanal tequila. It's about mid-price range. I want to be very honest. We got the expensive tequilas. It's kind of in the middle. So you can get it for anywhere from 50, 60 to 100, depending on which one you get. Basically, the resulting flavor that it has is very rich. It doesn't have a burn to it. It's very smooth. They have Blanco, Reposado, Añejo, and currently they have a limited edition, which is why I said it would be a little more on the high price section, of Maestro Selection Number 1. And each one is crafted with care and intention. So like I said, mi gente, in case you don't know what that means, it's more than a tequila. So they like to say it's a movement. So the name mi gente comes from actually mi gente, which is my people, emphasizing community connection, conscious creation. And as the first tequila producer to achieve B Corp certification, mi gente ensures that every step from agave harvesting to bottling is done with environmental and social responsibility in mind. So their partnership with the Women's Earth Alliance is not shocking. Mi gente supports women leaders in Mexico via WEA, which is a regenerative agricultural and health accelerator program. So that's their way of giving back to their local community. These initiatives provide grants and resources for women leading sustainable agriculture and health efforts in their communities, creating a ripple effect of empowerment and impact. So when you take a shot of mi gente, not only are you getting to celebrate and enjoy it, because we always want to drink to be happier, not to handle any stressful situations. Just remember that not only are you enjoying a fine tequila, but you're backing a cause that uplifts women and protects the planet. So let's all raise a glass, and it's going to take me a minute to get this bad boy open because I never can open these quickly when I'm on here. It's amazing. But I think you might be enjoying something as well right now.
I am, and I'm on the road, which is quite frequent, and so I couldn't really bring a nice bottle with me. But I got to be clear, I don't have a history with tequila. I've done a lot of vodka in my life, a lot of whiskey, in always positive ways. But I'm starting to learn about tequila, and our channel chief here at Ooma, our vice president of the indirect channels, she's always ordering this particular drink that I have never had. I always hear about it. So in the spirit of this, I went in and ordered myself a ranch water with Casamigos. So I've never had this. So this will be my first time, and I'm going to do it with you guys. So cheers.
Cheers to that. Salud.
It's pretty refreshing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say ranch water is honestly one of like my old school favorites because it's, I would say low calorie if that's something you're concerned about, because really all it is like tequila, lime juice, and some seltzer water pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's very clean. It's very light, don't have a lot of worries. But
yeah, I like it. I should have ordered two.
I know, I was going to say, I think a lot of the time they make it with a Blanco, which is actually what I have today. And it was super smooth. You can't see it, but we'll put it right here. We'll pretend like you can see the mi gente. But of course, today is not just talking about tequila. Let's talk about tech. So I'm super excited to have you on here, Mr. Dave. And we are going to talk about everything Ooma, from replacing outdated POTS lines to reimagining the business experience, of course, with hosted voice and integrations that you guys offer. And so you are bringing that to the table. So let's get into it. And I like to start every conversation out, especially with people on the channel, because there's this whole entity out there that's like, the channel, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Which is shocking to me, but I get it. So let's start with a quick story about what brought you to Ooma, what excites you the most about your role that you have there.
Yeah, perfect. I've been at Ooma for, almost going on 6 years now. And any organization I go to, I look for a lot of things. One is the integrity of the organization. More importantly, of the channel engagement. And for those who don't really understand the channel, which I'm sure everybody on this podcast does, but these indirect routes to market, right? You have to have integrity in those programs that you're working with, so that the partners and the advisors, the resellers, all of these type of end entities, that they know that they have somebody have their back when they're going to their customers. And so when I'm looking at our organizations, I'm always looking, do they have that? And one of the things that attracted me about Ooma was they were well established, been around since 2004, but they were not a growth by any means type organization. They were very methodical in their growth. They were very focused in the areas that they participate in to make sure that they would eventually end up as number one or number two. And when we talk about some of the different services, I'll highlight some of this, but leadership is key, right? And when you talk about the integrity of programs, you're talking the integrity of organizations, it's also the executive team. And I'll tell you, one of the things I was impressed about here is our executive team is tenured. They've been here for a while. Our CEO, Eric Stang, has been here for well over 15 years. So there's continuity in the engagement. We don't have a lot of turnover. And for those who have been playing in the channel, we see that. And we see the upheaval and the fear sometimes that can create, like what's going to come as a result. And so we're very, in many ways, static, but we're very reliable. And that's one of the things I do love about the organization. We're also publicly traded. And as a publicly traded organization, that says a lot about our profitability, our growth. It really holds us accountable to being transparent in the way we work with our customers. Bad press has a material impact on the finances, on stock prices and everything else. So we're very cognizant of that. We're very cognizant of that. We're delivering on the promises. And so that's one of the things that really attracted me of being here. The other, frankly, is just the suite of services we have. Anybody who's in sales wants to have a lot of things that they can position, for their customers or for their partners. And in that way you win more, right? And so I do like the offerings we have going from, Kat, you talked about it. We do have great UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service. We have SIP trunking. We do direct routing for teams. And really one of the leading things that's driving, I would say probably 70% or more of our net new opportunities, POTS replacement, right? And so, that's one of the main reasons why I've come here. And I love being here 6 years. I plan on being here for much longer.
I love it. I love it. You talked about all those things, which led us into the natural progression. So for those who are new to Ooma, how would you describe the company's missions? And I mean, you covered on several of the problems that they solve, but what specific problems do they solve today in the telecom landscape? I know you talked about POTS replacements, but can you go a little further into that?
Yeah, let me dig in. One, in our DNA of our company, we understand that whatever we're doing, we're trying to drive a lot of value to our services. And so when I talk about the UCaaS, there's a lot of value in what we're trying to drive there. The same with the POTS. And when I think of the value, it's you're getting most bang for your buck, but also understanding our customer base and really how they're going to digest the services. So the DNA of us, we want to make everything as simple as we possibly can, right? We think in UCaaS world for years, it was plug and play, and it was really more plug and pray, right? And here, I do think we've done a phenomenal job with our Ooma Office platform, which is our UCaaS platform, really designed and geared toward SMB, lower end of the mid-market, where we are turning up clients literally within days, not weeks. And that has been very successful. We're doing thousands of logos on a quarterly basis. We just were awarded from PC Magazine for the 12th straight year, Best VoIP for Businesses. And that's a Reader's Choice Award, right? This isn't something that we sponsor, we go for, any of those type of things that we see out there. This is actually the readers on a survey say, we love Ooma. And for 12 straight years, we've gotten that. But it means we also have to give you strong administrative and management tools on whatever we deliver. Same with the POTS replacement, which we'll talk about and some of those things. Our base of clients for years has, when we're talking about the smaller segments, they didn't have a lot of technical resources available to them. And so we needed to make it so that it was easy to actually consume and easy to actually turn up. So I think a lot of what we're solving for is the services element. And so, yes, it's business communications, it's strong features and functionality, it's collaboration tools. It's a lot of the things that a business needs in order to operate to service their customers. But I think what we solve for beyond just the reliability in those services is how easy it is for them to use it. And more importantly, leverage it for that customer experience. Or when we talk about some of our hospitality services, the guest experience, and how that provides very much a long tenured solution, right? And so those are some of the things I think we're really focused on solving. It's not just the technology, it's about the overall experience in service itself.
Well, and you touched on it a little bit, but Ooma AirDial has been getting a lot of buzz because we've seen these POTS lines, plain old telephone lines, for those who don't know, go from we're going to charge you $50 more than we're going to charge you $100. And I mean, I've heard of some crazy amounts coming out. Can you break down what Ooma AirDial is, who it's for, and why it's such a game changer, especially for security, healthcare, any place that needs it?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, and I think most people know this, the FCC in essence deregulated this space. And, the incumbents that, whether it's Verizon, the AT&Ts or whatnot for years have been really wanting to move away from supporting that infrastructure. It's costly to them. Those copper plants, they take a lot of power. They've been deteriorating. And we're talking about the copper lines in the streets, right? They deteriorate. When they break, they take a longer period of time to repair. Their water is no friend to them. I went through Superstorm Sandy up in New York, and the Verizon copper plants were down for many months. It took a long time. And with that deregulation, that push for it, where the FCC finally said, yeah, we'll let that happen, we're seeing a couple things for customers that's having a material impact. There are, in areas of the country, certain deprecation orders where they're actually turning the lines down, right? And in other areas, to encourage customers to find alternate solutions, they're raising the pricing. And you hit a couple $100, but I can tell you some real extreme examples, and that we have, hard proof on this, where we've seen lines go from anywhere from $60 to $600. We've seen $100 to $1,000. I just got out of a meeting this morning where the partner literally told me they have an invoice. They put it on their bulletin board to show everybody at $1,200 a POTS line. And what's ironic here is every company has a few POTS lines, but we don't really focus on them. And the reason why we don't focus on them is because most of us have already moved the voice services to the cloud. But if you go back and think about what we've done, we've always said, move this to the cloud, but your mission critical POTS lines, the things that are servicing your fire alarms, your security panels, your elevators, keep them on POTS. And now it's not really applicable. You don't want to do that anymore. The other thing I would highlight here in where it's a fit is beyond the cost, it's a fit because there are a lot of requirements from a compliancy perspective that need to be taken into account. So POTS replacement is hot right now because it's very much a big thing within the market. In the channel, we talk AI, we talk security, we talk all these sexy things. We're trying to bring the copper conversation into where, hey, POTS isn't sexy, but AirDial, the POTS replacement solution is, right? And so if you did go to Vegas and go to Channel Partners, you saw we had that booth and that was kind of the theme. The other thing I would highlight here too, really for everybody, you may think it's just a couple POTS lines. What's the big deal? But if you think about distributed environments, like a lot of these REITs out there, a lot of these assisted living facilities or parking garages or whatnot, those few lines per location, that really adds up. And we've saved companies millions of dollars by moving them over to an AirDial solution. And, I can keep going on, but I'll take a breath for a moment and have a sip of my ranch water.
Well, and I think you hit on it because you were talking about how POTS lines don't work. And I cannot tell you the number of times I would get calls after it had rained and they'd be like, our phone's crackling. Is it the phone system? Or we're getting inconsistent calls. And of course, this is like, well, I would like to say back in the day, but I can tell you, I still got some people with on-prem phone systems. They're like, not out of my, we call people server huggers, but they're like, no.
It's funny, yeah. Kat, you say when you mention that, it also triggers this kind of thing because we get calls, and I've worked with some school districts and a few others. We get calls where people are like, I don't know if I really want to move it. The POTS lines are the most reliable thing. I said it, forget it. And I have to highlight, POTS lines weren't necessarily the most reliable thing. You just never had visibility to it. You didn't know if they were down until an inspector came out or until all of a sudden the alarm panel couldn't communicate to the monitoring station and you were getting a call at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we wanted to do when we built a POTS replacement solution is we wanted to build the software to kind of bring POTS into the 21st century. And so we have what we call Remote Device Manager. It's a cloud-based portal. It allows these facility managers or these safety compliance officers, it allows them that visibility to see what's going on with all their devices across all the locations. But it's not just the visibility aspect. It's like, let's administer, let's add lines, right? It's a multi-purpose device. Let's add the fire, the security, the elevator. That device gives you a single management interface, right? But it also is things like, let's set up alerts. Again, you didn't know if your POTS line was down. But now, if a device goes out of service, your POTS line is down, we'll send you an email, we'll send you an SMS. If it kicks into the battery, it might be a power outage that's occurring, right? You can see that. You can get those notifications. And we have something that's very unique to Ooma AirDial, and that is call notifications. Now, this is really something I think is cool. And when I say bring it in the 21st century, it resonates. If you're in an elevator and you press an emergency call button, that can send an alert to somebody local, to designated contact saying that button was pushed. That means it might be stuck. Or maybe you're at the pool, and you pick up the pool phone. God forbid somebody's drowning, but you can notify somebody. Schools like it, for their emergency call boxes. Municipalities like it. From the blue light phones and things like that. There's all kinds of applications, but bringing it to the 21st century. And I think this is something that I'm saying a lot recently, which is we keep talking about the hardware and we're not really talking about the software piece, which all of us are talking about SaaS and UCaaS and all these other things. That software is a game changer. And so it does give that visibility.
Well, I think that really covers a lot about why someone would want to look into AirDial, especially in this day and age. Because, I think a lot of times clients, especially in the SMB mid-sized market, they just pay this bill, they pay this bill, they pay this bill until the bill like suddenly is up $1,000 and they're like, all right, what's going on? We've been up. And then all of a sudden that brings it to the light. Whereas this is proactively saying, hey, let's go ahead and fix this before we get there.
Yeah, that proactive piece is important. When all too often, because it's a couple lines, it's going right to the AP department. So nobody's really paying attention. And we've seen some of the carriers where they embed in their invoice the notice of rate increases. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's just paying it, not seeing that notice of rate increase, the following month you're hit with it. And then by the time you research and go find another solution to bring it in-house, it could be another month. So one example we have is a partner who had 12 lines. It was $100 a line. It went up a $900 per line surcharge, effectively making it $1,000. They were exposed to basically 13 to 15 grand. The second month before they got it implemented, 25 grand. Mm-hmm. If you are a company who's looking to do an AI or cybersecurity initiative and you have to find funds to do the assessment, well, there you go, right? I mean, there's low-hanging fruit to find budget money for other things. And, and that's, I think, something that is often remiss. I'd also highlight, because it's going to the AP department, it's not always the IT person that you're talking to normally that is actually looking for that stuff. It's probably, depending on the size of your organization, it could be the facilities manager, right? Because they're responsible for the elevator. They're responsible for the fire panels or whatnot. But it does allow you to engage with them and partner up. And if you are the IT person, it allows you to create value to them because you can bring it in and do the monitoring for them and the alerting and the other stuff. And so there's a lot of win-wins in the way we approach it.
Well, and I think you hit on it. A lot of times we think, oh, well, IT's got that covered. Or, obviously, when you work with some SMB, it's like, well, the office manager will know to look for these things. And I'm like, no, they're not looking for these until the bill is like $800 more. Like, because they're just going, I hate to say going through the motions, but it's like,
that's what they're doing.
I mean, it is.
They have other priorities, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the reality. And we talk to a lot of, when it's the client itself, it's always have got something else going on. All of us are trying to do more with less. I mean, that's just the reality, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we have to, as advisors, as partners, it is incumbent on us to help educate them about what's happening. So sometimes we have to be a little bit doggish about it, not making fun of my last name, but we have to be a little bit doggish about pushing forward, the messaging.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, Ooma AirDial is definitely one of the amazing offerings, but I kind of think, for lack of a better term, your bread and butter really is your UCaaS solution because of the integrations and, how it obviously Ooma Office, can't get that out today, stands out in a crowded market. So what do you feel, especially like when we talk about small and medium-sized businesses that are sometimes overlooked and underserved, how does Ooma's UCaaS offering really serve those clients?
What I love about Ooma Office is the way I look at this. It's very much a business communication system, right? And if you think about a lot of Main Street America, these are again 50 users or under, it might be 10 users or under, whatnot. They've been left behind in a lot of ways. A lot of our UCaaS competitors have always trying to go above. They want to go higher. They want to go more. And I get it, right? The way we design the system for easy digestion, for easy implementation, again, having clients be live within days versus weeks, is made it very economical for us to actually engage in that market and providing that level of support. In the channel, all of our clients are supported out of North America. We do have an offshore, but that's more for backup, right? It's more for tertiary services. We try to support all of our clients through the channel in North America. The UCaaS element has all the features and functionalities that you would expect to have from a UCaaS solution. You got to have, your Find Me, Follow Me. You have to have the mobility apps. You have to have the collaboration tools, the meeting tools. We actually have an embedded call center capability where you can bring that in and have some of the analytics that you want with that. But that's the Ooma Office platform. We also have a platform that actually goes more upstream. So it allows us to go really across the board in different areas. So our Ooma Enterprise practice, we can actually do more customization in what the client needs for those larger clients. But I would highlight that while the UCaaS component is great, and it is our bread and butter because we're doing so much of it, where we're winning within the channel beyond the POTS replacement is this one other strong vertical that we have, born out of the fact that we can do UCaaS and SIP and some of these other things. And that's our hospitality practice. So, when you think about hospitality, it was always Mitel's realm, right? From a premises perspective. And there really wasn't many cloud-based providers that can play in this market. And there was a couple reasons for that. One, they didn't have maybe the technology. It was more importantly, they didn't have the pricing structure. And the other thing was they didn't have the ability to integrate with some of the property management systems so that you can have the wake-up calls or when you check out, the credentials get cleared, right? Because we have the different services, we can kind of come in with this kind of hybrid engagement where we can provide cloud at the front desk. We can repurpose through a gateway all of the wiring in the wall, reuse the phones in the room, tie it all together so that there's a good guest experience and modernizing the communication element, bring an AirDial for all the fire life safety stuff, right? We can tie that all in, single bill, single support structure, but we have the pricing mechanisms for the rooms. It's not a license that's expensive. It's $5 or less, depending on how many rooms. So it makes it very economical. But we also have the relationship with middleware, Jazzware, that allows us to do the PMS integration. And we're going to have a press release on this very soon. But, your audience may be one of the first to find this out. We actually have been brand certified with Marriott, right? So this is an area when I think national cloud providers that we really set ourselves apart. In fact, I would tell you, if there's two things you ever think about Ooma for, it is POTS replacement, it is hospitality. The other stuff we do very well. We do it very foundational, very methodical, but we know that the competition in the field, there's so many out there. But these are the two areas that there's not as much competition, right? And we win every day in. So, yeah.
Well, and I think you covered it, not just in the idea that for like an SMB as smaller, that you guys are a great fit because of the customer service, but also for like your larger entities, your enterprises, you offer that. And I think some of the what I call table stakes that a lot of people don't think about that are important, and this can be broad spectrum, but I'm thinking particularly for like insurance agents is, having call recording on all the time, being able to integrate with their systems and being able to use it. And your average insurance agent office usually only has 4 or 5 people and maybe 12 max.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And we do a lot of farmers. We do a lot of, other insurance companies. We're gaining a lot of steam in the legal industry. So we have integrations with Clio and things like that. That's our, when I think Main Street, I think about these small offices that often are neglected, right? And in New York, where I live, there's a ton of them, right? They're all over the place. And, in the channel, we're always talking about the big fish, and that's great. The big fish are great. We love those. But it's these small ones that they're the ones that are paying the bills every day, right? And they often, unfortunately, feel neglected. And that's something that we just, it's in many ways, and I hate to use cliches, but it's white, it's high touch. It's white gloved. It's that kind of stuff. We really endeavor to do that so the experience is positive. We all know the cost of keeping a client is much lower than the cost of acquisition. And we take that to heart, right? So we try to keep our churn very low from that perspective, right? A lot of things wrapped around that.
Well, and I think you hit on it, but Ooma is known for ease of use and stellar customer service. So what do you really think is the secret sauce behind that?
I think it's the DNA of the company, frankly. I think it's everybody all hands on, making sure that experience is positive, making sure the process is established, the expectations are set properly, making sure that, again, it's easy as much as you possibly can make it. Right. I laughed about a little bit about the plug and pray. I've been in UCaaS since 2003. Okay. And I've been with a variety of organizations, and this solution with Ooma Office is as plug and play a UCaaS solution as I've ever seen. We pre-vet the phones, we pre-set them out. So I think our secret sauce is the serviceability of all of our stuff that we provide to the customer, and that it's borne out in the award we got with PC Mag. It's borne out in, like, for AirDial, we've won awards on the POTS replacement, things like, Elevator World gives out an Ellie. It's for best communication system for elevators. It's Vision Magazine which services all these facilities like Class A buildings, that gave us a best safety device for buildings. There's a lot of third-party accreditation in that validates what we're doing, right? Gartner just gave us a best practice, not Gartner, I'm sorry, Frost and Sullivan. Geez, Frost and Sullivan just gave us a best practice award for our POTS replacement solution, and and the way we're doing it. And so these are these feathers in the cap, but they allow the partner or the client to understand that you may not have heard of Ooma, or if you have, maybe you heard of us in a different context, but it provides that credibility to know that you're engaging with us in a healthy way, that we're a good organization. Our smallest client is one user, and we do it all day, right? We won't take less than one because it doesn't pay. But smallest client is one. Our largest client is 100,000 users. That's a single client, right? In a very distributed environment. So yeah, I would say our secret sauce is the way we service our clients and the way we're hyper-focused on delivering that promise and delivering that solution.
Well, and I think you really hit on it, because a lot of SMBs or smaller clients, it's like, I don't want to say, it's whatever they see on TV or whatever they see here, that's what they'll go for. And I really work with my clients to find out which companies are going to give them the best customer service. And I always use this example. I know that this is not Ooma, but one of the companies that I work with, they're great if you're going to have that 500 or more users, because you do not get that kind of customer service till you hit $5,000 a month in MRR. But, and I always say, mom and pop's pizza needs a good phone system just like everybody else does.
And you can't tell the small business user that they don't deserve the same thing as an enterprise. That frustrates them, right? And it gets their cackles up, and rightfully so. They put all of their effort in potentially their money into a business trying to make it grow, and they want to be treated as such as they want to treat their clients. And so that's something that, again, we take from as a responsibility. We take it very seriously.
Well, we hear this term all the time, and that is AI. Everybody's talking about AI. It's everywhere. You can't turn anywhere without some kind of AI. So what do you see on the horizon for Ooma, and how do you think that moving forward it could possibly differentiate you all from the other players in the space?
I know we're looking at a few things from the AI front. We actually have an internal labs that's headed up by a really, really very smart person. What we're focusing on right now is leveraging AI internally so that our engagement and our processes are better refined, so that, again, we're delivering on that promise from the services perspective. What we're not really focusing on right today, because we're not focused on that larger segment, when you think like some of the contact center stuff where they need AI to gauge the customer attitudes or some of those things. That's not, we know that all the players are there and they're engaged. We want to take AI and more help us internally to be more efficient. Again, make sure that we have the reliability and the other services that we can deliver to the client from that perspective. So that's kind of the way we're approaching it right now. I know there will be some enhancements in the future that maybe we bring to the client around business intelligence and, some of the other things that they can tap into. I think it'd be interesting to see what we're going to do from an AirDial as we continue to evolve that solution. And obviously with Ooma Office and some of the UCaaS things, right? So that's a constant enhancement and constant development aspect. And by the way, we're using AI right now internally with our channel teams so that we know how to engage with our partners better, right? We're trying to leverage these so that we're better focused.
No, I love that. And I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but as we look towards the next 12, 24 months with Ooma, what are there any innovations that we haven't discussed already, or market expansions or opportunities for growth that you see this is where we're heading?
Yeah, we'll have a new release on AirDial, a new model that'll probably come out within the next six to 8 months. I think we're going to have a new development on our fixed wireless product. We have a nice fixed wireless product. It's Ooma Connect. We've been very successful in deploying these as backup to maybe your lines, your physical lines. Very inexpensive, $30. It's a good backup solution. But we're seeing more demand and more ask, not only from smaller clients, but even some of our larger ones, do you have another type of fixed wireless solution more in the 5G realm? And so, one of the things with AirDial is we formed all these great relationships. And it's worth noting, going back to the POTS replacement, that our primary way that we transmit all the voice packets from the endpoints is through LTE, right? And so we've got these great relationships we formed with T-Mobile, with Verizon, with AT&T, and US Cellular, which, you think about all these rural areas, US Cellular has done great in, and that's why T-Mobile is moving forward to try to acquire them. So we're going to leverage those relationships to kind of build out the fixed wireless. One of the other things that we've done within the last year is we rolled out what we call multi-path transport. And that's a patented solution that we have. We have it on our Ooma Office platform, and we rolled it into AirDial, and we'll continue to enhance these things. But MPT, multi-path transport, really, if you connect an Ethernet to the AirDial, and along with what's going on with the LTE, we'll duplicate every voice packet. And by duplicating it, what I mean here is if you have an active emergency call, we'll send it over both routes, over LTE and Ethernet. And if you have a route that's impacted, let's say you're stuck in an elevator, okay? And the last thing you want to do is have a route impact and the call drop, right? And so I like to really think of this as fail safe. That call will stay up. Typically primary, secondary networks, you have to converge. And if you converge, voice packets are sensitive. They typically drop. The call drops. You reinitiate. Not a good experience. So I think when we think of the development of like AirDial with the new models, that'll enhance some of the stuff. We'll probably provide some additional functionality wrapped around the reliability aspect. And then again, back to the fixed wireless.
No, yeah, I think those are all great things. And I can tell you, like, I speak to my clients about backups and redundancies and plan Bs all the time, because usually I get kind of what we were talking about to bring it full circle. Well, my POTS doesn't go down. I don't have to worry about my internet going out. And I'm like, yeah, but they're going away, hun. But having that type of backup is going to help maintain and keep them up.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
We saw recently, and this was about 2 weeks ago. I saw in our group chat internally, one of our resellers had a client that got hit with a $40,000 fine because their alarm panel did not work properly. And so, fire marshal went out there, inspected it. It failed. They got hit with a $40,000 fine. So it's not just the money savings. It's the avoidance of cost, right? And so that there's an element there. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, in bigger buildings, in office buildings, it's supposed to be able to ping as I understand it, is ping like every 5 minutes and go through without missing to make sure that everybody's protected within the building.
Yeah, it depends on the municipality for sure, right? I mean, one of the things, because it's a fire life safety device, AirDial, we have to make sure we build it with compliancy in mind. There are national guidelines out there, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, right? They have a whole article, 72, on how fire panels need to communicate with the monitoring stations. And we have to adhere to a lot of their guidelines. And they're probably the more stringent body when it comes to that. Things like you have to have power continuity, because the CO used to provide the power through the copper line, right? And so got to have embedded batteries in it, right? You've got to make sure it's on a private network. So we make sure that on the LTE that we have those cross connects that keeps all that traffic secure, private, and encrypted, right? That's a critical component. There's ASME guidelines. That's the elevator communications. There's UL certifications, the making manufacturing devices like this. UN guidelines. Right, UN, not United Nations, which is crazy right now, but it's the stuff wrapped around lithium batteries, and it's something that people don't really think about. But we hear the scooter and hoverboard stories, so we've got to make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's when it comes to lithium batteries, and making sure we can provide some of the compliancy guidelines needed when you back into things like analog lines for fax machines for a medical facility. It has to be HIPAA, right? Or PCI if you're connecting it to a point of sale system, things like that. We did run this through a couple of the fire bodies, if you will, California fire marshals. We just actually renewed this week on that. That's important because they're very stringent. FDNY, I live in New York. That's one of the more stringent bodies when it comes to this stuff. And it took us a while. It takes everybody a while, but we got that done. And we feel confident with our white papers to help educate and with these 2 certifications. And frankly, just the amount of deployments we've done, we feel very confident that we can go in pretty much any municipality and be able to be compliant.
No, and I think that's awesome. And you hit on some. I'm not going to speak anything. I live in Texas, and I like to say we're kind of like the Wild Wild West. So we may not be as stringent as others, but having all those backgrounds still very important.
Listen, if we don't deliver listen, you guys are a carry state, so we're going to make sure we do everything we can to make sure it's set in and set right and operates the right way.
That is for sure. You've given us some amazing information. And just like I cover all different kinds of tequilas on here, and there's always differentiators between them, what would you say are kind of some of the biggest differentiators that you want people, when they think of Ooma, this is where, the sweet spot, this is what differentiates us?
Very simple, right? Anytime you have a POTS replacement need for fire life safety environments, that's elevators, fire panels, security panels. It's back up to maybe a PBX systems that are critical, right? Those analog line servicing for emergency 911 services. It's blue light phones and unattended emergency boxes. It's mission critical faxing, right? Where they got to have long form faxing. It could be the HVAC boiler room, gas meters. It could be any of those types of access controls. Any of those requirements, any of those needs, definitely think of Ooma. Bring us in. Hospitality, as I established, because of our unique way we approach that would be the second one. And really the third one would be, listen, if you have a need for UCaaS that is really more, I just need strong feature functionality. I want Main Street blue collar I want that stuff that just works reliably and I don't have to worry about it. I would say that too, because that's where, that space has been neglected and we're there, right? And we're number one in that arena. So maybe 3, but the first 2, absolutely 100% without a doubt. I'll drop the mic on that one.
No, I love it. And thank you so much for joining us, for imparting information and helping us, of course, with everything. But you know what? That is a wrap for today's episode, and you poured some amazing insight and innovation. So I'm going to say it again, a huge thank you to David Beagle for joining us and giving us this amazing inside look at Ooma and how you guys are reshaping telecom from AirDial to feature focus, of course, SMBs and all of the above. And of course, everybody go out tonight. Well, I say tonight, this weekend, grab yourself a bottle of Mi Gente. I can't even get this to turn right there. Grab yourself some Mi Gente. Know that not only are you getting clean and additive-free tequila, but every sip is helping with the WEA, improving that community and culture can thrive together. So, of course, everybody tells me I can't forget this. So to all our listeners, if you're building, scaling, or just dreaming, remember the right tools and the right tribe make all the difference. And so if you love today's episode, if this is your first time, make sure that you do a solid for us. And that is like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow, reach more bold thinkers, have more tequila on here. And, until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and always salud. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.